I'm going to be doing a series of videos on movies from the 1980s that really had an impact on me when I grew up watching movies. Movies were a big part of my childhood. Going to the drive-in movies in a small town in the Southwest was kind of a treat. Much before the age of internet and being able to stream movies and videos, being able to go to the movies was a treat for anyone at the time. And so I recently purchased Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and The Ghosts in the Darkness, and it had me thinking about movies that I really liked growing up in the 80s and 90s. And the first movie that came to mind was actually not a movie made in the 80s, but a movie made in the 90s, which was The Saint, starring Val Kilmer, who turns 65, I believe, at the end of this year. And he was one of my favorite actors from the time, as was he a lot of people's favorite actor at the time, starring in Top Gun, obviously, and The Doors, The Real McCoy, one of my favorite movies, Tombstone, one of the best renditions of a character probably ever in cinema in that movie. But for this video series, I thought I would start it with a movie that is kind of hit or miss for a lot of people, and that would be Willow. So recently there was the new TV series or shorts for the Willow series, and it was incredibly well done, and I feel like it carried the story much further and did a good job of kind of furthering the story but also making it entertaining. Now, Willow, the movie made in 1988, made a big impression on me because it was just weird enough to make you uncomfortable when you were young, but not weird enough to make you not want to watch the movie. And watching it as an adult and watching the scene with the Siskel and Ebert dragon, if that's what you'll call it, just made it very funny. A la the Princess Bride almost, in terms of visual effects and how out of place certain things in the movie are, but that makes it heartwarming and fun to watch. Not to mention the actors Warwick Davis and Val Kilmer and several other actors in the movie who kind of take their role and make it their own. I just really liked that particular movie for how outlandish it was, but the world building that they had was incredible, especially for 88. I was not old enough to see it in 88. I believe I saw it in the mid-90s, and then I definitely watched it a couple times in high school with my friends. It was kind of one of those cult favorites. I think that's kind of shown in the Rotten Tomatoes score, the tomato meter having it at 53% for like 60 reviews by critics. But the popcorn meter, which is the audience score, has it at 80%, which is pretty high up there. It's definitely a good movie to watch, and it's not, I feel like it doesn't stand the test of times visually, but storytelling wise and the actors that were in the movie can still make you care about the story that's happening. It was a Ron Howard directed movie fairly early on in his directing career as far as what I would consider big movies. He had Cocoon and Splash. Before that, did he have anything else? No, I mean pretty much just Cocoon and Splash prior to Willow, and then went on to direct, countless movies. Willow being nominated for 2 Oscars and winning one of them, to me is a surprise based on how out of place the movie was for the most part, but a very good movie with very good actors. So in that case, let's see, what was it for? Best effects and best visual effects. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Star Wars visual effects were better and they were a decade earlier than this, but it was the first movie. The fun facts about the movie is it was written for Warwick Davis. Um, George Lucas had first mentioned the movie to Davis's mother when he was filming for Star Wars, and the idea kind of spawned from there. So it was really written with him in mind. It was also the biggest casting event at the time for people of small stature, like Warwick. And I mean, looking at the tribes in the movie, I mean, it completely makes sense with the number of talented people that they had on screen for, especially for the 80s. That was kind of, would have been outlandish at the time with them not playing something like an Ewok or some type of fantasy character that's not human based. And it was the first film that introduced morphing from an animal to a human, or a human to an animal, or an animal to an animal. It was the first movie to really do that from a visual perspective, and that's, I guess, why they won the Oscar for that. But yeah, the overall, watching that movie gives me nostalgia going back to it, and I absolutely love to watch that movie. I could watch it once a year and be completely happy to see that movie and take a stroll down memory lane. I'm not watching it while I'm doing something else. I can sit down and actually pay attention to the movie, laugh, and share it with other people. I feel like that's where this movie falls in the category of, is you have friends who've never seen it, and so you sit down and you kind of just enjoy them seeing it for the first time. Obviously they're a little jaded because of CGI now, being 30 plus years later, but the movie's definitely fun. To me, it's all The Princess Bride in terms of visually not stunning, but the story is great, the acting is great, and everything just kind of falls into place to make you really love the movie. And so that, as far as the first one in this series, I felt like it was appropriate. Willow was an important movie to me when I was a kid, and so kicking off this series where I'll be going through probably Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and The Ghost in the Darkness at some point. Definitely a lot of Val Kilmer movies. I loved Val Kilmer as a kid. One of my favorite actors from that time. Definitely do a bunch of Kevin Costner movies. Not just because he's popular in Yellowstone, but I grew up watching Kevin Costner, and one of my favorite movies of all time is Bull Durham. Bull Durham is probably in the top 5 on this series in videos that I want to do, but Bull Durham I want to do in a very specific way, just because that movie is such a sports rom-com guy flick, that I feel like I need to warm up to it a little bit and get used to doing these. But yeah, so Willow, for me, it's a 9 out of 10 movie, and something that everybody can enjoy watching. You could watch it with the family and not have to worry too much about the kids getting scared and having nightmares. My kids have seen it and they didn't seem to have any issues with it. So once again, I think it's a great movie and a good way to kick off this series.